As you may know, we're getting an Embassy RV. Because of this, I've done a lot of research on various aspects of RV builds, and one of those aspects is insulation. It may seem pretty straightforward, but it isn't nearly as simple as you may think. I just got back from a trip to Elkhart, Indiana, and met with the staff of Embassy and fellow Embassy RV owners in Wannabes. There's now an Embassy RV Owners and Wannabes group on Facebook. The link is in the description below. We talk about everything Embassy RV, from layouts to options to dreams of travel in an RV. We even have a few song lyrics posted. If you own an Embassy RV or are just interested in finding out more, consider joining. Be seeing you. As I was saying, I visited the Embassy RV facility in Elkhart. If you want to know more about that, I have a link to the Embassy in Elkhart video in the description. Now, unlike other manufacturers, Embassy uses aircraft insulation. If you want to know more about this kind of insulation, there's a link in the description that has some general information. This material is used for everything from fire resistance to preventing bacteria and mildew growth. It's also very durable and is, of course, used for insulation. Embassy uses multiple layers of aircraft insulation, but not only that, they make sure every part of the van is insulated, unlike some manufacturers that will remain nameless, but who don't insulate all outer walls and doors. Now, I'm no expert at insulation. All I know is it keeps warm things warm and cold things cold. Kind of like a thermos. I've also found out insulation has an R value. In simple terms, the R value is a measure of how well an insulation barrier resists the transfer of heat. Kind of like a thermos. Now you may ask, what is the R value of this aircraft insulation stuff that Embassy uses? And it's a fair question. I asked it too. What I found out was the R value doesn't really say very much. Why, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you. A lot of insulation uses air pockets to help, insulate. Trapping air in layers is a very effective way of insulating. For instance, layers of clothes trap air to reduce the loss of heat. The thicker the layers, the better the insulation. But that's an issue. The layers are thicker. You only have so much space between the walls of a van, and having to compress the insulation material means less air, and this may affect its insulating properties. What you should really be interested in is how the insulation works after it is built into the van. A real-world insulation value, so to speak. Maybe I should start calling it the RW value. I asked Terry Minix how they tested insulation effectiveness in Embassy RVs, and this was his response. My test was a metal cutout from one of the cargo vans. We cut the metal and glued 8 layers of the insulation, then mounted our composite wrapped with marine vinyl. In other words, they created the wall of their van exactly as they would a regular build to do a real-world test. He goes on to say, we pointed a heat lamp at the metal side and spaced it until we got a constant 150 degrees. 150 degrees? You must go to really hot places. We then used a laser thermometer and tested the temp on the vinyl side all day for 8 hours. 8 hours of 150 degree heat? That's more than real world. That's real hell. So what was the result? The vinyl side stayed at room temp the whole test. You heard right. Room temperature for the entire 8 hours. Now that's insulation. In my opinion, this is how all manufacturers should be testing their insulation efficiency. Not by R values, but by how many degrees difference the outer wall is compared to the inside of the van. In other words, their resistance to the transfer of heat. Beyond R value, there are other factors to consider. Heating and cooling are highly dependent on the efficiency of the product doing the heating or cooling. For AC systems, they use what is called energy efficiency ratios, or EER ratings. Of course, different models of air conditioning units have different EER values. A 12,000 BTU AC using 1,500 watts of power has an EER of 8, which isn't considered very efficient. But if that same unit used 300 watts less, or 1,200 watts of power, the EER would increase to 10, which is considered more efficient. The Embassy AC is an incredibly efficient 20,000 BTU 12-volt model, which barely uses any energy at all. It also is important to understand the size and shape of the area being heated or cooled. A 19-foot-long van with an open floor plan is a very different space compared to a 22-foot van with more enclosed spaces. How the inside of the layout is designed will determine things like airflow and can influence what areas are being cooled or heated efficiently. In short, all of these factors, unit efficiency, van size and layout, and insulation properties, have to be taken into consideration when determining real-world insulation effectiveness. It isn't just about the material used to insulate a van. That is only part of the equation. You need to see how that insulation has been added to the van, and if every area has been insulated to reduce heat and cold escaping. Those factors will affect the efficiency of the entire process. In the end, the insulation in an Embassy van has been tested and works extremely well, using little energy in the process. You have to do your own research and make your own decisions. But as far as we're concerned, the insulation in an Embassy is superior to most builds out there. And that's good enough for me. Be seeing you.